Hey everybody, it's Gaming with the Guys. I'm Gaming Greg, and we're back after another 2-week hiatus. And we're going to be doing another Bungles After Dark here. We're going to be doing some discussion. We've got guests. We're talking Grandmaster's model. It's going to be models. We're not the channel that just gives you one Grandmaster model. We're going to give you two, but there's only one Grandmaster who made both, so that may be a hint of what's coming. So to kind of get things rolling and talk about what's been happening in our gaming lives and then get into the general discussion, I'm going to bring my partner in crime, the fabulous Gaming Jason. Hello, Gaming Jason. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Rushed, but I got all the garbage out the door, so it's all good. So it'll be picked up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's always good. I appreciate you keeping the neighborhood and your house clean.
Yes, my son doesn't appreciate it enough, but he's 2, so what do you
He's
expect?
two. You didn't appreciate things with like that when you were 2 also. So I get where he gets that from. So tonight, Jason was very good at gathering us a top tier grade A guest to talk about the models that they have made for winning a Grandmaster or 2 or so. So we're happy to bring in Al, Grandmaster Al. How are you doing tonight?
Rocking and roll. Yeah, I'm good.
Excellent. We're so glad to have you here. And talking about some models that are coming out soon for players to enjoy.
If you're able to scalp them, because we didn't go to UKGE, so now I know how you all felt for Adepticon, except you guys got our figures, so I'm like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, the lucky few. The lucky few who have purchased.
Well, yeah. Now we all just have to go to Gen Con. That way all the models will be there.
You think that they're going to be here at Gen Con this year?
I think they're having the booth at Gen Con. Maybe I need to talk to Wandler.
Yeah, I was like, talk to Wadler about that, and then we'll have to talk to our ninja shopper about picking up stuff for us then.
Yes, Dr. Dice will go shopping for me. Don't worry about that.
Oh, that too.
That is for certain. So before we kind of get talking about now, Al, were you at UKGE?
I was, yeah.
He was.
Expo. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm going to go right off the rails right from the beginning. How was it?
It's a great event. It is good fun. Because it's not just Bushido, like it's a massive event. I think someone threw it like 50,000 people at it. It's multiple halls of what's already like a massive. I mean, that could be total nonsense. I just remember someone saying that. But there's a lot of people, a lot of people, and all the shops and things, all the availabilities for 3D modeling, new game systems, board games. We played in some mega games, which were really great fun. And yeah, really great. And then obviously the tournament we went for originally was the Grandmasters, which ran really well. So
actually, quick question now that I just thought about it. So because Games Workshop, the Forbidden Company, is in your backyard, basically, like, do they go all out for UKG, or are they kind of just as stingy as they are kind of over in the States for stuff?
I don't think they were there.
I don't think they were there.
Yeah, that's the rumor I've heard, is that they didn't have a booth or anything.
And the year before, they were there because that was the 10th edition release at that point, I think.
Oh wow!
So there was a big, massive, 10-foot Terminator and things, but this year, yeah, not so much.
Oh wow, that's kind of, I guess, surprising for me, but.
I mean, there's plenty of stalls selling.
Oh, I mean, I get that stuff. Yeah. I would figure that they'd have that big like premiere booth, because I know at Adepticon they have like the Games Workshop's like booth store where you can get like the con exclusives and whatever other stuff that they're releasing. So I figured they probably just did the same thing, or just did it like even bigger. I don't know. Do life size Truex Dungeon Explorer, but with Space Hulk, and y'all just get to go in his Terminators.
True Dungeon 40K would be pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet.
I figured that they would do something like that or something, because like, we're in our backyard, we're gonna spend the money this year to do something cool.
Yeah. I'm not privy why they weren't there, but
yeah, I'm not
to
sure.
the best of my knowledge, there certainly wasn't that same presence that there was the year
I know, and I know for Adepticon's a bit different. One, it's the scale is much smaller, but Adepticon grew out of being a strictly 40K event, and then it's kind of grown to the pseudo monster it is now, which is
In a couple years, it'll be as big as UKGE. If 50,000 people, if 50,000 people are there, and it's getting like this, they're moving to the new location now.
The trick is
I feel
so,
nervous about putting those numbers out now. I'm just like, did I just make them up?
no, you're pretty much spot on, because I remember before the different social media types were talking about it, and what they were saying is they were actually UKGE was going to actually be bigger than Gen Con, but Gen Con was pulling in 70,000 people. But what they were referring to was that the floor space of the convention was actually bigger for UKGE than Gen Con was. But the numbers have got to be close to the same. 50,000 I wouldn't.
Looked up via the powers of the internet, UK Games Expo, and attendance looks like 65,000.
That's
so you
Gen Con
undercut
numbers.
it. That's Gen Con numbers there. Yep.
Yeah. And I won't go near Gen Con with a 10-foot pole. It's too much. Yeah, I know. I would love to go over there to check out a UKGE though, and we actually have friends that had a booth there for DCC Dungeon. Oh my gosh, Jen and them are going to kill me for not getting the name right.
Bob and Jen are gonna kill
Goodman Games, role playing system. They've had a booth there for a couple years. So yeah, that's something that's on my bucket list. Go over and lose in another country.
You can lose a whole other host of games as well. The options are quite varied. That's good. Yeah, there's so much. There's brushes, paints, 3D modeling, whole host of new games. There is a lot going on. There's even like role playing games going on in the background. There's so many options.
Yeah, that's again the closest thing that I've ever done was days of yore when I was a youngster. I would go to Gen Con in Milwaukee back in the 90s, and that was kind of the same thing. And then it's just exploded over at in Indianapolis now. And although I will say the biggest complaint that I've heard of our equivalent Gen Con is that it's turning more into board games than it is role playing and miniature games. And I know, and this was funny, and I'm waxing now. I'm just going when we were doing events, because we used to run events at Gen Con back in Milwaukee, and it was funny because even 40K, when you would go to the event, it wasn't so much for competition or doing tournaments and things like that, even though there were a couple of them going on. It was you ran an event. So the closest thing that would be a competition is our buddies used to run Battletech, and they would run this thing called King of the Hill. So you'd have 20 people. They built this giant foam monstrosity, and everybody got a mech, and whoever finished the day, whoever stayed on the top of the hill the longest won. And they would run it for 8 hours. You lost a mech, you'd start at the bottom and go up again, so that's how it would work. We would run events, we'd run theme events. My one buddy built like this we did we would do things with 40K fantasy and stuff like that, where we build giant mazes and people would go through with different parties and things like that. We would do 40K battles, but you never had to bring your own miniatures. It was everything was brought in by the different judges and stuff like that, or the people running it. Now, if I were to go to Gen Con, they might have a few events like that, particularly in the historicals, but now it's all tournaments and whatnot. And I know at Adepticon, it's hard lugging around a bunch of stuff, and that's just a miniature focus thing that's doing tournaments. Trying to do that at a beast like Gen Con or UKGE, if you're doing multiple events, and I mean Bushido's nice because it's low model count. You could get away with 5 models, and it's not a big deal. But if I'm doing 40K and I'm playing a 2,000 point army and I'm doing Swarm, that's a lot to lug around.
Absolutely.
So Anywho, so yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to get somebody's view on UKGE and that. I know the tournament. I know Andy did really well. Everybody said it was well run, lots of fun, which is great to see. Lots of new players, which is something that me and Jason have noticed since Adepticon. Is it seems like we've had a huge influx of players coming in, maybe even starting back in January, going when they had the tournament at Element Games, although that's smaller scale, even though they did have 32 people.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's wonderful to see the game growing.
Yeah,
That's
it's got some backwind here in the States, and clearly it's been catching backwind all over in other parts of the world. Not even, I was just going to say besides Europe too, but
yeah.
even in APAC, it's starting to grow there too. So
So that's some great news. Good for the health of the game, which I enjoy so much. All right, so what are we doing hobby wise? I'll start with me. In the last 2 weeks since we've been on, I painted a Blood Bowl team and then have done nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just life, work. I've been traveling for work and everything else, so it's just a matter of sitting my butt down and doing some actual painting. I will say I've assembled another Blood Bowl team just because I've been going back to and I did the short Bungles After Dark talking about GW games and stuff like that. Blood Bowl's always got a special place in my heart, and so now that we've kind of a little bit of a revival, I'm jumping on that boat.
I still have the
So,
computer version.
well, the computer version's still there, but it's been fun doing it. And now that I've got my one team done, now I picked another team just because
Would all suck.
I play Wood Elves, and when they get pounded into oblivion, which is bound to happen, I'll have another team that I could fall back on that's a little more robust. It's the old old world Imperials, so it's dwarves and humans with some halflings thrown in. Woohoo! So now we'll get to paint those and see how quick that goes. Plus, I've got Blood and Plunder to paint up because we're doing their summer thing, their summer event. So I got to get my butt in motion and build those. Lots of stuff to do. So, Jason, what have you got going?
I actually put some paint on my Kabuki models. It was yesterday,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it still counts because it's before we recorded.
better late than never.
That is in progress, and I mean now it's just like, oh, now I just actually have to paint the rest of the models. I just did my skin tones yesterday, so
I will say I did build now that I remember, I did build my Ito models. The three Ito models that I had Gordon them bring me at Adepticon. So hopefully I'll get some
nice.
paint on those so I could start playing Ito again. Yeah. Al, what have you been up to?
I have also went a bit old school,
Oh,
in that I have painted up half a Mordheim gang.
Ooh, okay.
nice.
Yeah. With a Strigoi vampire. I'm not really sure. There's the time. I'm holding up to a camera. So I got a bunch of ghouls I've painted up, which are suitably gory. Done that. I've painted up Kimiko, painted up a second Koyama. And
What happened to the first one?
The first one's the original pose. The second one has a conversion.
Oh, okay.
And the original one is painted up in my Minamoto colors, and the second one is painted in the Garrison of the Dams thematically accurate colors.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, I've gone hog wild. So I've done the Mordheim, I've done two Koyamas, Kimiko, I've done Sadeo, I've done Ido, Ashigaru, and I'm doing two Imperials just now. The two new Imperials.
Very nice, very nice. I know I love the Imperial models. If I could only make them, work, that would be helpful. Without Karu, I guess that's the trick I need to figure out.
Yeah, I am looking quite forward to having a wee go with them.
I will say, when I did play with them, I loved having when we played against the Blood Brothers. I did love having. I think I had 5, 6 death sentences out at one time. That was wonderful. I still lost.
Yeah, he lost. It wasn't like it was to see how bad it would be. So I played one of our buddies, I took his master's list that he took this year, and yeah, I decimated, to put it nicely.
Yeah, and I will say the reason why it was 5 or 6 is because I did put it. I had a death sentence on eldest brother, but eldest brother can remove it.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got the key feat that lets him remove it.
Whatever it is that allows him to remove the condition. So it's not. He's not paying key to remove the death sentence. He's paying key to do the feat, which then removes the death sentence.
Oh,
Yeah.
technicality win.
So tricky.
Eldest
Technically
brother,
accurate.
definitely fair and balanced.
Hey, I just saw that they fixed the Golden Sentinel, so they can't just automatically be like, I'm within 3 inches of myself, so I'm aware and I have reach.
I find myself inspiring.
Oh, see, nerf. I lose and I lose and I lose, and they still nerf the model on me. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
I don't think it was
No,
on you. I
more
think
of
it was other
More
people.
of an oversight, that one.
No, I totally agree. It was an oversight, but I was going to abuse the hell out of it while I can.
Oh, you definitely abused the hell out of it.
All right. So let's kind of to move things along, as it were. As we all, well, I can't say we all have done a lot of hobby things. I've done crap. Jason's done crap. Al's done a bunch. So that's good. Somebody at least is doing hobby stuff. Hopefully, I'll be able to do more this week now that I'm not traveling. Hooray!
Yay.
All right, so let's talk about things that have happened here. So, Al, recently you have your 2 Grandmaster models have shown themselves, revealed themselves. I don't know.
That's not any better.
That's not any better.
Expose them. Wait, no.
There we go.
That's
There we
now
go.
that I'm-
And we could start swearing. Thank you, Al. Talking
Yes.
about exposing ourselves.
That's not swearing. That's just...
I know, but I mean, we're talking about exposing stuff now.
Well, that's all right, because now that I'm looking at what I've posted, I've also noticed that I pulled up the data for the absolute wrong figures, but that's okay. I'm going to figure it out. While I'll be doing things on the fly.
Like, this one.
Yeah, I picked the Shiho rather than the Minimoto, but
Oh.
So while I'll dance, or while I'll pull down data and do stuff, let's talk about this. So, your two GM wins. Which ones were they, and then which models came out of those?
It was a wee while ago now. And
Yeah.
my dementia-addled brain doesn't always remember things so well. So I'm going to say I think they were both in the same year. I think they were both 22. I think one at the start of the year and one closer to the end of the year. And yes, so the first one was with Minamoto, and then the second one was with the Protectorate of Beer. And both fine and balanced lists.
Both totally didn't leave a mark on Bushido history and exactly leading to the downfall of Hagane. For those who are newer to the game, yeah, Hagane used to be so much worse. You can thank Al for exposing that. Except he did it the right way instead of Mutaz, where Mutaz proved his point with Karu at another event instead of like, oh, no, I'm going to take this to a master, makes my point.
Well, I will say, even with the nerfs to Hagane, I've been brutalized with the crit strike Hagane bomb list. That's not been fun. It makes me sad.
Hagane's still exceptionally good.
Oh yeah. She's just not that beyond. She's still like S tier. She's just not S tier plus. Yes,
that is fair.
So, and again, I'm dancing here a little bit. This is my fault for not being ready.
Well, for each of the Grandmasters, for each of those events, was there anything that kind of stuck out to you when you did each of those tournaments? Because I mean, for me, I kind of still remember at least one or two particular moments for my Grandmasters. I don't know if that was anything that you, for either of the other two, the memorable matchup, memorable moment where it's like after this, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna take the crown.
Well, I didn't really expect to win the first one because I got a draw. And it happened that the other guys who would have taken either first, we basically had that kind of playoff and coming towards the final. They brutalized each other, and I think they end up. I think
And they knocked each other out.
Knocked each other out basically, and I just edged past. So I think they got like a 1-1 or a 1-0, and that was enough that I snuck past.
Okay.
With a sneaky bear. Notoriously sneaky bears. That also was when Fire Cami were stronger than they were. So again, that's my reason to exist, is to get stuff nerfed. So yeah, the hardest matchup there was the ninja matchup, just because. There was Minamoto had even less to deal with, camouflage, significantly less to deal with camouflage than they do now. And so it's just kind of there's been a lot of development in Ninja List, so that would have changed. There's just been a lot of change in the game. There's so many more models that have been added to it. But at that stage, the Minamoto range was more limited than it is now. And that was just a really hard matchup. Just because you couldn't get hold of them. And there was a slight error with one of the rolls where the Grey Pilgrim got poisoned to death, which was not ideal, which made the matchup that much harder. But yeah, that one was definitely the hardest one of the games. The other ones were it was able to brute force relatively quickly with the list, because it had a lot of range options, so it forced the opponent to either come on to the samurai, or just have shots after shot basically rain down on them. So it was a very effective list for the time. It would be significantly less effective nowadays. It would still be good. You could still definitely take games with it. It would just be less world breaking than that.
Okay. Yeah, and ninjas, and this is what's interesting about different metas and things like that. Now, again, at Adepticon, I think we only see one person play ninja lists. The complaints, I shouldn't say the complaints. The big discussion over here is that we do set boards for the currently single big event does set boards, and that's mainly because myself and Art, who are usually hosting it, have kind of made that decision. We wanted to go with that. We like lots of terrain. We like a little bit of theme to the boards.
Our boards do look really pretty.
And it helps. It helps us sell the game here at Adepticon this year because of our position in the hall. It certainly attracted a lot of attention, so that was helpful. From a game, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not against that. It's just a different way of playing the game, really.
Exactly.
In the same way that I quite like the 2-list format, there'll be those who potentially don't like the 2-list format, and in the same way that the top players will potentially be able to utilize terrain more effectively than someone who's kind of journeyman.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just there's not that imbalance there, hopefully, because the terrain has been set up in such a way as that pre-existing, so it can't be manipulated by one side or the other. It's just, this is the field that you'll be fighting on. Do with it as best you can.
That's kind of what we do. And I mean, about the only complaints we get, it's mainly from Grandmaster Cody, is whenever we do a ring objective scenario, I'm always putting some piece of terrain in the middle of the ring. And he's like, why would you do that? That makes it... I'm like, dude, because otherwise there's this giant empty hole in the middle of the ring. I'm not just going to leave it flat. I'm going to put something there, whether it's a building or it's rough terrain or obscuring terrain that's difficult.
I think he doesn't like that there's a giant house in there. I think he'd rather be like a rough terrain or something like that, so that we can at least shoot over it.
This is me crying for.
Oh, I know. I'm the same way. I just tell him, like, suck it up, dude. That's just, it is what it is at this point.
That would break the current rules, though. Like, you could put a forest in there, but you couldn't put something like a house.
It depends on how small the house is.
No, anything that's impassable cannot go in zones.
Oh, no, not zones, not zones. So the ring objective scenario.
Like the 6 idle ones, like Muzzy.
Oh, right, okay. I got you.
You are correct. We couldn't put it in the zone.
I'm like, no, that one.
Like
No,
you're
no,
like,
no.
what the hell are these guys talking about? Yeah.
I was about ready to book his next flight to the United States. Be like, they don't know how this works. And Grandmaster 3-1 right there.
There we go. Well, I will say so. I don't know if it's just a curse for Andy, but the last 2 years that he's come out to the GCT and run the booth, he's wanted to play in the Grandmasters here.
Mhm.
Both years he's been unable to. The first year we won't talk about why he wasn't, but needless to say, he actually had to work the booth that year. This year, I mean, the poor guy. He had a little whiteboard, or was it a piece of paper that he
He
would
took
point yes and no to
he
because he
took
couldn't
his
talk.
notebook and he wrote two big squares. One square said yes, the other square said no.
And that's how he communicated the entire day with us, was just
Oh.
pointing to things because he lost his and I get it, that hall was very, very dry. I was losing my voice after the first day too because we were just doing demos and selling, and it was crazy, but yeah, I felt for him. But yeah, so I don't know if it's a
He's a
curse.
fragile boy.
Enos did fine when he was here. He played in the tournament.
He's more robust, obviously.
Yeah, that must be it. Very, very healthy. Um, so yeah, you had so now your second the second Grandmasters where you went
With Ryu.
with Ryu. Anything stick out in your mind from those matches?
Oh, probably just making people miserable. That
Yeah.
one
And besides you just
was
walking up with just like supreme and utter confidence, being like, yeah, this isn't going to be fun for you.
so that one is an engine, and it's an engine that if you don't disrupt it, you've probably already lost the game. There are plenty of ways to disrupt it for a lot of factions, but
Mhm.
if you don't have them, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough that I didn't really run into many. There was no hard counters, there was no darkness, there was no blow the man downs. It's kind of throwing obvious examples out there,
Mhm.
war weary and things like that, that kind of buckle or cause it to splutter, shall we say? Continue with the metaphor. I was fortunate enough that I didn't really run into any of those objectives or those kind of opponents.
Sure, yeah. And I think in for people who are going to tournaments and big tournaments like that, one, being prepared, knowing your stuff, and having a good list is really key. But some of it's just I don't want to say luck because I don't want to downplay anybody's achievement, but matchup.
Dependence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
matchup
big factor.
is big on that one because there are some matchups where it's just like you got it, or then if it's that hard counter, it's just like I have nothing I can do, and I can just hope that I'm lucky and I have better dice.
Mm.
And I'll say I was earlier you mentioned the two list format. I was one of the people that was kind of against it. I'm leaning now towards well I if I'm and I'm
Grudging
waffling.
acceptance.
I'm getting acceptance because I know I'm about to waffle a little bit because I said I was not going to be running the Adepticon for 2025. I'm still trying not to, but I may, uh, just because it's at the new location. Um, but if I do, or if I have influence over the person who's running it, I'm probably say go the two format.
Even
It's
just to try it.
No.
Even just to try it.
just
No.
to try it. I will say I'm not going to allow strategic deployment or
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they
um,
clarified that you can't, if you're doing the two list format, I don't think you can take strategic deployment
Yeah.
or order for battle.
Your
yeah,
theme or themeless, but not the
yeah,
Ronin themes.
right. So I think that will be interesting.
Totally true.
One, I want to see it, and I think I don't think it's terrible. The more that I'm thinking about, the more that I'm listening to it and whatnot, it just it works. Even though I was earlier on very adamant. So this is me changing.
Oh my god. I just like the one list format because I think it's just more difficult than at some of those things where it's just like, yep, nope, or this is gonna suck. But then again, I mean, you do have those like high level, like super competitive, like Agani Bomb type lists where it's just like, shit,
Well,
I have no answer to this, but I don't know. I just like the challenge for it sometimes. Also, then I don't have to think about another list.
or
I suppose the not counter argument, the counter debate to that would be that smaller factions they don't have the wealth of models, and
True.
they can't. It's very difficult for them to make like a diversified list, or by their nature, it's difficult to make a diversified list.
Yeah.
Like it's I was going to say Oni, but Oni have actually got quite a few kind of weird different models. Minamoto, like if you're like, okay, I'm going to take Finest Steel, and yeah, that's that. I can't make anything. There's like very little range options in there.
Yeah.
And if you, there's no game to be had. I suppose the counter argument to that is like larger factions have got then two diverse lists to pull on.
Oh, I'm just thinking Temple Rokan at that point again. I think we've all shamed them enough, but to me, it's just like here's awesome list A and super awesome list A, and it's just like congratulations. I'm just like, oh god. Well, that's why I was kind of glad, at least at UKGE, everybody was like not playing Temple even when they were hiding it till the very end, and I'm glad I called people out. Oh, we're all hidden, no Temple so far. No. There's like 8 people who just don't want to out themselves yet. And I think out of the people who did, I think it was only like 2 or 3, so it wasn't that bad, but still.
Oh, it wasn't too bad at all. No. I think there was probably that kind of weariness probably relating to Temple, so I think a few people were like, I'll just play something else.
That's the only way you stop Temple is through modesty and shaming them.
Is faction shame? That's now a thing. Okay,
that's the thing. Is faction shaming.
Faction shaming. I'm gonna have to remember that, especially when we're playing against Grandmaster Cody again. Although he plays the most. He plays everything. No, your counter arguments that makes a lot of sense. I know one of the arguments was saying, well, for newer players, it's good that they'll be able to have some options because then they don't have that. I would tend to disagree with that one because the same things that make it good for the newer player getting some other options and being able to build something goes doubly for the veteran player because they actually know what they're doing and now they get to build 2 lists. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I definitely want to give it a spin. I want to see how it works. I think it's the right way to go. It just took me the long way to get there.
I mean, you might come to it and say, no, actually, I don't like it. But, until you try.
Yeah, I guess the reason why maybe I was, we're way off track here, so I apologize. Maybe the reason why I was is so resistant to it is we only have the 1 GM over here. Whereas you have 2 in the UK, and traveling back and forth between Europe and the UK is not terribly bad. It's much more doable than us jumping over the pond.
Couple states away, yeah.
It's like driving to Iowa, but with water. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, neither do I.
So, but hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll be a second GM in the United States someday. We're working on it. All right, so kind of that was it's nice to see, knowing that it was a Gane bomb. I guess that would have been miserable for other people to play against. It's one of those where you're like,
to them all. I think it was, who was I playing? Was it Olaf? I think. He gave me a really good game. He had a really strong Ronin theme list. So it was beatable. It was just a lot of people didn't know how to deal with it, and then the vast majority of people didn't have like the solid answers that cause it to stumble. So yeah, there's an element of luck there, but like I know how to wield it.
Yeah, and unless you're having, and from my opinion, it would be too, if you screw up any one single die roll against a Hagane bomb, it's like a domino effect. It's gonna cascade down and all over, especially if it's against a key model. And then you just watch your, it's kind of like Ralph being killed, watching his heart break in half, where he just, which is how I play every game.
Where you see his heart break.
Mm-hmm. All right, so your models. I'm going to now pretend to share a screen. Here we go. This is the fun part. Let's see if I don't drop all of us. That's totally not what. Oh, yeah, that's actually what I want. Holy crap.
The system works, ladies and gentlemen. The system works.
There we go.
That's it.
So
there we go.
Ooh, let's get rid of that. That's ugly. So your models. This
Mhm.
would be our Minimoto model with apparently traditional colors. Uh, what was our inspiration on this one?
So there's not a lot of Minamoto kind of back. Being one of the newer factors, it's not a pure massive wealth. At the time, there was not a massive wealth of info and background Minamoto wise. Well, obviously, one of the big things was that Andy's kind of talked to me about was like the garrison, what the garrison's about and things like that. So, with that in mind, Koyama here became somewhat of the kind of the focal point for the garrison. And if
Okay.
you had a chance to read any of the kind of the recent lore drops related to the last Grandmasters, Koyama's in it quite a lot. She's kind of, I don't know if you would say she's definitely, she's not the commander of the garrison, but she is one of the ranking officers of it.
Okay.
And she is kind of like one of the kind of heroic figures, I suppose, within the garrison. And it's her. So she's the one of the spelunkers, I suppose. Is that the right term? So basically, she goes around. She's a cave dweller and a cave
Okay.
diver. So she actually travelled into the cave system, and that's why she has a torch.
Oh, a spelunker.
A spelunker. That was the word I was looking for.
There you go.
Yeah, that's me. That's my English degree at work right there. Yes.
Lunker.
$20,000 college education right there.
So yes, that's kind of her.
Okay.
I was thinking the reason she doesn't have like a big Tetsubo is that I was like, wait, what would you use like in like tight confines, like traditionally, like weird stuff like spades and knives, neither of which would fit, but hand axes and like a traditionally favorable weapon for close quarters. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
why
And it makes a lot of
Koyama
sense.
Koyama
So
ends it with an axe, but not like a scabby normal axe. This is like a Minamoto axe, so that's why it's better than all.
Yeah, I like the axe. I like how that looks. The model in general is it turned out really really nice. I like it. Which means I'll probably have to buy it.
I mean, we do have our mini motos now, so yeah. Or we just wait for Cody to buy it, paint
Wait
it,
for
and
Cody
then he'll
buy
buy
it, paint
another.
it, then I'll buy another one and just trade it with him. That's our painting plan for most things. So for do, 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 for Koyama,
Mm-hmm.
what when you were working to develop the model, what were you looking to do, or what specific role would you say she fills for
So,
Minimoto?
so at the time, Minamoto didn't have any anti-camouflage tech, so
Yep.
they were, I won't say helpless, but they were totally at the whims of players with camouflage.
Mhm.
um, to basically make that first move because you would walk up, you could never engage them, they would always engage on you, which is generally what happens anyway. But there was never the option there to kind of engage them if like camouflage models didn't want to be engaged. So the concept behind Koyama is one, give Minamoto an option for a bit of counterplay into
Mhm.
camouflage factions that didn't exist previously. And then, secondly, or actually probably more primarily, was what would a model that was a veteran of fighting against the Bakemono hordes, what would that look like? Like someone who is used to basically fighting, like, or not used to, but has like fought down in the caves, has been fighting like the Bakemono for quite a considerable amount of time. Someone who's always used to kind of looking over their shoulder, making sure like avoiding the ambushes and things. So that's why she ended up with some of the rules that she does. So, for instance,
Like,
she
I'll flip
has
that
molten
now.
balls. Yeah, we have a look. So let's have a wee look at some of the things that,
Yeah.
as I said, the axe for close quarter fighting. That's why she has that axe over the standard Tetsubo, and also because you don't want every single model to have the same equipment. It would be
Mhm.
dull. But thematically, that's why the hand axe was in there. Aware because she is in there just trying to avoid all the constant ambushes and things down in the cave systems. Molten balls are actually flashbangs, if you want to think about
Mhm.
them. So
Okay.
that's what their
Oh yeah.
original concept was. What would a Bakemono that lives in the dark enjoy? Flashbang. So that's what the molten balls basically translate to. But being obviously a bit more of a fantasy setting with a bit more kind of Minamoto chic. That's what the molten balls kind of represent. Alert, again, this is because she's like down there leading like the other time Ryan Ashigaru, is basically to avoid like kind of the ambushes and like the traps that the Bakemono might try and like utilize. So that's
Mhm.
that's the kind of the reasons behind that. Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Eo's light. This again kind of relates back to that kind of anti-camouflage tech that didn't exist before. And it was kind of signatory of, this is the torchbearer, like delving into the darkness,
Mhm.
kind of leading things forward. So that's why we have a lot of these traits that are kind of like, this is someone who is a veteran of the Bakemono War. Also, hint, this one wasn't. Jason added the Vengeance Bakemono,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny actually. Uh, so yeah, she's pretty good at killing Bakemono, and otherwise, armor 3, her armor has taken a bit of battering, and she's kind of got lighter armor because of like the spelunking.
It's
Um,
armor 3. I mean, it's lighter
Still,
armor.
yeah,
It's still
lighter.
solid armor. I mean, I
It's light,
still am gonna
light
be like,
Minamoto armor.
yeah.
I don't know why she's fearless, to be honest. I think that was that, but I think it's kind of like main character, probably main character trait.
Mhm.
But then Minamoto tend not to bother, or Minamoto Samurai don't tend to bother.
Well, I was gonna say, Ryo, Minamoto Ryo doesn't have he's got armor 3 also.
He does, he does.
Yeah.
He's an old man though.
That's
He's
true.
slightly. And resistance 2 is just the standard Minamoto trait.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of more or less
I like her
the
because
reasoning behind it.
yeah.
Okay. No,
I like
it's a good role to fill, and yeah, for sure. It doesn't seem overbalanced. I mean, if somebody really wants to throw alert on a whole bunch of models, that's a lot of key to be doing it.
Yeah, it just doesn't have a lot of
Oh,
heat.
I just like that ability just in general, especially with it being ranged and instant. I personally, that one is my favorite out of like just cool ideas for key abilities. I like this model a lot just from I can see it's kind of a cool snapshot of where the game was at a point in time. Still in current game, she's still boss as hell. But if she had come out, I don't want to say in a more reasonable timeline, but if she came out much sooner, oh, she would have flipped the entire. I from where the game was at that point before, like that big errata, like mid 2022, I
Mm.
think it was. Oh, she would have like th- I I would have allowed Temple players to bitch for the only one time after this model came out, especially with Relentless. She's like, I have an answer to
Oh,
Camo, I have an answer to Breath and to Darkness. Oh, and yeah, all that trap spamming from damn
from the temple grounds,
Bastions
yeah.
of the Mountain. Oh, guess what? Fuck you, I'm relentless, and now I kill
Mm.
everything. Where's that asshole who can do
It's
snare within 15 inches of the
it's
center?
Mm.
it's one model, Jace, that's relentless. Now, if she was giving relentless out to everything else, that's a whole different
Well,
story,
I mean, but the
but
point being is those that you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I mean, the Bastions would still give it a hard time, and it's got 2 oxen with their name on it, but I
yes,
mean,
cow and erosion.
but,
Yay.
uh but I mean, just overall, it's cool just to kind of see where it was for the game was at that point in time, and
Mhm.
just kind of like, yeah, no, this has an answer to just about all the major stuff, and still adding on to Minimoto,
Mm.
to a cool, unique, new angle there.
Thing I would say it's a mitigation of other people's effects rather than making the Minamoto necessarily better.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So the problem that Minamoto have is if someone is durable enough to withstand them, if they're like skeletons or a cow and erosion,
Mhm.
if if they get to the center point, for instance, and for the Minamoto player is probably going to lose
Yeah.
because they can't shift. So like something like Breath of Your Eyes, like devastating for Minamoto because you're a slow faction that's made
Mhm.
slower, and they can basically pack the midboard and they're just stuck and they will just lose the game. So that helps kind of mitigate. It kind of gives an equality, I suppose, to kind of continue a more reasonable fight.
Mhm.
It allows them to push up like and actually like give a fight, or something like Io's light, and I suppose alert just makes them. It kind of doubles down on the endurance that Minamoto are used to, predominantly. So it just makes them a bit grindier, I suppose. Which is, I suppose,
She's brutal.
faction core, I suppose.
Yeah, she's. I mean, I like the thing that I like about it. It's essentially you've taken your normal Minimoto Samurai. So
Mhm.
here we've got this, and we've just added you've added just a few things on it, and again the alert and whatnot. It's more that's more survivability and less on her because she already has it minus the range defense, but it helps the other models, that are going to get messed with when they get jumped by ninjas or whatever. And then the IO's lights. I like that too. It in general. I think it's a good model. I think it's solid. I think I'll be scared of it.
You
And
should
the
be scared.
unique
If you're
effects are pretty
Bakemono,
cool.
you should definitely be scared of
Well,
it.
yeah. If I'm
Uh,
Bakemono, I don't know what I'm doing with it. I'm trying to shoot it or something like that.
If I'm Bakemono, I'm like, how can I play Oni now? I'd like to play Oni now, please.
That's when I pull out list 2 and it's all Onis. There we go.
there
Problem
you go,
solved.
sorted.
So
So
yeah,
yeah, that's Koyama.
that's
She
cool.
is kind of like a more leader. She has more support elements than a traditional samurai, I suppose.
But still can fight.
She can fight. She can fight
Yeah.
pretty good. She is things like Nico and Rio have some pretty good abilities for like either knockdown, stun zero, and things. So she's less good at setup in some ways, in terms of pure melee presence
hmm
than them, um, under most circumstances. But she's obviously makes up for that by being a bit more versatile in other areas.
Oh yeah, I would say. I mean, with brutal one, yeah, it's like having 5 dice. That's great. And then you have pierce one and bleed one, both of which are totally solid.
Nasty, yeah.
Very,
Yep.
very nasty.
And
So
then
I don't,
plus one on the axe.
aside from some fire effects, I don't think anybody else in Minimoto has a damage adder on there,
No,
like a poison
Mhm.
or a bleed or something. So
it's
that's
fair.
gonna be something that's a little unexpected. Um, and I like the fact that the molten ball is, while it puts fire tokens out, it's not a damage dealer, but
Oh
it's
no,
something something you just got to be aware of. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't stand too close together. I suppose.
hmm
Yeah.
It's only ammo too, so you have to make sure, yeah, if you're going to use it. I've I've actually only used it once or twice because generally you'll actually prefer melee.
hmm
But yeah, if an opportunity comes that's looking quite juicy, obviously, and
Yeah.
you can't make melee anyway, chuck a molten ball. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. If they're clustered up if it's a bunch of clustered up Bakemono, go to town. Why not? That would be a good use for it. All right. So that is Koyama. I think me and Gaming Jason both enjoy that model. So let's move on then and do the same kind of discussion about our good buddy here, whose name I forget. Saito?
Sadio.
Satio.
Sadeo.
Yeah, we'll all butcher the language. That's probably us more than anybody. So what's the story behind this gentleman? What was our inspiration?
So there was a lot of the time, or previously, I've put in other concepts, and one of them was a mounted Ryu samurai. But that
God.
was
That was
uh,
immediately said no. We're not
yeah, I
letting you
said
have a
no. I
horse
was like,
owl.
oh no, I can't want a horse. I wanted a guy with uh, like a yari on a
Mhm.
spear. On a spear, he's riding a spear. No, he's riding a horse
Yes.
with a
He's,
spear.
well,
Whoa, okay.
he's riding a magical spear.
Oh my gosh, that's like that's a new Studio Ghibli movie or something
Yeah,
coming out.
it's uncomfortable, but he's very deadly. Um, so there's that, and there's like, no, that's maybe it's too far out there, Alistair. You're too crazy, damn it. So one of the other concepts was this gentleman here, who is, I suppose, for another word, kind of, if you want a kind of a Western equivalent, bit of an inquisitor.
Okay.
He is. of the hair, and his animosity with the Shiho clan goes back to the Dragon War when he was
Okay.
a younger man. In his current position, he has basically been tasked with rooting out enemies of the state, those who are basically shown loyalty to the treacherous and dishonorable Shiho clan, who were correctly ousted from their previous position as controllers of the Jawara Isle. So his position is to basically find those who are shown loyalty to Hiroto
Okay.
and basically oust them, make examples of them. So yeah, that's kind of his shtick.
His shtick.
Um,
I was going to say I was kind of hoping because, and again, this is more of the sculpting look of him. He looks like Bob from
Yep.
Last Samurai.
Oh, you. I don't think Al knows who you're talking about. We were talking with the guys from Getting Tabled from Australia, and they were really they're like certain that it's like, oh, he took inspiration from Bob the Silent from The Last Samurai.
So, yeah, he was supposed to be the. So in Last Samurai, he's the one following Tom Cruise's character all over the place.
Right. Okay.
It's the look of his. It's the sculpt of his face that does it for me. So
I mean, it's not me that controls the artwork. I chose that one. I was like, yeah, that one looks cool, but
it looks
maybe
cool.
that's where the artist took it from originally.
It might be.
I'm not privy to that information.
Yeah. So that was kind of the inspiration then is an Inquisitor thing, which I like that idea. That's a really cool one. What role does he fill? What's he kind of do?
He's very much a support model, as you can see.
Oh, yeah.
He's an older gentleman. So his combat prowess is maybe not what it once was in his youth.
He's a Mako. He's Takashi Mako level.
He's Mako light because I was expecting to be like, okay, where's Crit Strike 0 on him?
Well, again, this is where the minutia of like 3 comes in. So the Crit Strike is a newer thing that the Takashi have taken up in kind of recent years. If you have a look and see like the older models, or the older version of them has powerful attack.
Oh, okay.
So he has never learned being basically out of combat for most of this time. He never has learned crit attack, hence why he doesn't have it. But he has the older version, which is powerful attack.
That's a cool call out then.
Yeah.
He's never going to use it because he is 2 dice down to 1 dice, but it's more like a nod to his 3 more than anything else. I mean, I suppose if you boosted and had a death sentence, you might use it, but the chances to use it
really thin. Yeah.
real low.
Well, if you're
he could get
using it against Shiho, you probably will because you get the vengeance, and if you wear him out, get him down to 0. It's doable.
That'd be suitable. But yeah, it's more a nod to this is an older guy with the older fighting style that Takashi used to utilize.
Very
rather
cool.
than the perfect strike, the critical insta death. The pistol, because I don't know, I wanted a pistol.
You couldn't get a horse. You couldn't get a guy riding a horse, but you wanted a gun. Damn it!
I want a gun. I was like, I want him packing heat, and they were like, yeah, fine.
Whatever, Al. We're tired of making your models. All right, let's
just give him a gun.
Seemed cool. I was like, yeah, he's moving with the times. As a hair model, like the clan is, they've got the crazy wacky weaponry, they've got their alternative kind of fighting concepts, and so I was like, yeah, this guy would not be above carrying a pistol, so he's gonna carry a pistol. That's what it is.
He's the Indiana Jones of the hair clan, where you have Agaru and all the other dudes with these awesome weapons. Pulls his gun out, done. Move along.
So if we just kind of work our way through bravery, standard. He's still obviously of samurai. Fear 4 is kind of representative of his position, basically, how people might be like a bit reluctant to engage someone who's obviously got the writ of the Takashi, the ruling samurai behind them. Parry 1, he was decent back in his day, but obviously he's a bit older now, which also is kind of represented in his kind of lower health pool. And prowess samurai stuff. And the strategy. So the strategy is again kind of relates to the hair concept.
Mhm.
So if you have a look at Sadeo, you can see there are actually parallels to Shiho abilities on his card.
Mhm.
And the idea is that he has learned. He's hunting these people,
Mhm.
and he's learned from their tactics because they are the smart guys, and he's basically picked up some of their strategies and basically implemented them in turn. So the place on strategy is kind of related to the virtue effect that you quite often see in Shiho.
Yeah.
So
There
it's
we
kind of a
go.
mirror to that. The two-man rule, again, you could say that's you could possibly see that utilized sometimes anyway, in certain models in Ryu, but again, it's kind of a nod to like the Ashigaru's rule. So that's what that relates to, and then the final thing, obviously, is the vengeance against loyal, which relates to his kind of
Yeah, I kind of pulled
loyal.
I went to the second page there. Here we go.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And then that obviously relates to the fact that that's who he's hunting. Originally, I did have it was like loyal and like cult basically. I think that was it was
Okay.
kind of refined because it was like hinting enemies of the states, but equally, I can see him. He's is something like the cult would be very much in his kind of watch list and his these things are to be disposed of if obviously they'd catch wind of them.
Yeah.
So they are again destabilizing enemies of the state. And warrant. So the reason there's no opposed key test in this is because it's very much just a secular warrant, as it says.
Mhm.
Like there's no, it's like that guy. It says on the list him, so it's not related to key feats or anything like that. It's literally no. I want that guy. So that's what warrant is. You can contest the warrant, and that's basically you throwing off the death sentence. You can recheck. No, it's definitely still you, so it can go back on you. So that's why the unique effect is when the death sentence comes back, we can basically get the key back for it, and the once per game icon disappears, and you can cast that again. That's the reasoning behind that.
So now, okay, so now this will be interesting. So much like with the Imperialist and Death Sentence, you're going to have currently, I think there are only two models, although I haven't actually looked it up because, that would take work and brain power. Eldest Brother and Takashi Mako would be able to chuck that, they're able to get rid of it and not pay key to do it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because if they use their key feed, it'll take it away, and then he wouldn't get the once per game back, so he wouldn't get the warrant back.
Right. So,
but as my dad's pointed out, there's only two models in the game that
my guess is there's probably at least 17 temple models that have it, but
no, the temple models have like the healing prayer and like, oh, we're Zen, so it's all good.
Now you're gonna make me look.
It's all good.
So while we talk more about this one, the two-man rule. In enemy activation, when the enemy model moves in base to base with another friendly model in pulse, choose another friendly model in the pulse with chosen friendly model. Okay, yeah, that's very Shiho.
Oh yeah. It's totally Shiho, and when I looked at it and I built a list for this, those new, what are they? The new Edo Ashigaru. I'm like, oh, this guy loves these two. They're just like, oh, here, we already made it. I don't want to say broken ass, but we made a powerful ass pair of Ashigarus. But yeah, with that two-man rule, I'm like, oh damn, they just wrote this guy for these two. Just be like, yeah, go ahead. They're just gonna go ahead and kill whatever they want and move along with their day.
Yeah. So his idea was he was basically built to basically support Ashigaru. That's what he's supposed to be, basically in closet. He's taken out this posse of Ashigaru. This is beneath the samurai largely to go prisoner hunting. So he's getting the Ashigaru together and basically taking the warrant out. So that's the kind of the idea. He can be used with other samurai, but predominantly he's built around.
Oh yeah, I would
supporting Ashigaru.
I would definitely take him over some of the Gunso at this point. With I'm trying to remember them all now, but I mean a lot of the Gunsos. Hiramasa, I think, is one.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Gun. There's another one that I really like that I typically take. I think he's like 18 points. I'd have to look him up real quick, but I would definitely take Sato over both of them. Or it's kind of like pick and choose what I want the theme to do. Where I'd almost like want to go into a tournament, even though it's a lot of the same with the 2-list format. I'd almost be like, I want to take a Sato led Claws of the Dragon and then take one of the other Gunsos to kind of lead the Ashigaru in a different way to kind of cover some bases. I know they would still cover a lot of the same things, but just they can do it in different ways, which I really like.
You can definitely take both of them. I like the list I've been thinking about with I would have Hanso and Sateo.
Yeah, okay.
Because they work relatively well together. But yeah, basically the samurai are all fairly independent. You can make some things with them. You can make mixed lists which operate fine. But this was to try and ensure that there were options to keep the Ashigaru kind of relevant as much as possible.
No, I like support models that can fight. And yeah, he's not the greatest fighter in the world, but
he can maybe defend himself. But maybe
he can defend himself better than a lot
up.
of my Silver Moon models. So, I mean, to me on that, just coming from, again, Silver Moon having all the awesome support models, if Sato got engaged and he's exhausted, it's like I feel like I still have a chance with at least parry 1, and also the fact that if I have the key, I can try to boost to save his ass. A good number of my support models, I mean, once I get engaged, there are some I can't even boost their melee stat. I'm at 1 die, and I'm like, yep, there goes that model. So he can hold his own. I mean, he'll definitely, if he gets overwhelmed like any other support model, and then yeah, he's gone. But I could see him being more challenging to take down than some other support models in the game.
And that, I mean, part of that's kind of thematic, because I was like, well, if someone's going to have a warrant from the state, it's going to be a samurai. Like, they're not going to give it out to an Ashigaru. So I did talk to Andy about this and said, right, well, could you have that? And he's like, not really. No, it'd be the samurai class that basically gets access to that sort of kind of control. So that's why it ended up being like, it seemed thematically reasonable in my mind that he was going to have to be a samurai, so that's why he was. But he was obviously kind of make him less combative is the fact that he is of an older generation, an older, slightly wiser generation in this case.
Okay, so let's talk about the last thing that I forgot to do this with Koyama. So we'll do it for both really quick, and I can bounce back on the graphics. If you were to build a list, and we'll start with Koyama. So let's back up. Back one. There we go. If you were to build a list around this figure, who would be joining? Who would be this figure's BFF? Best friend forever.
So I would probably play her with probably in Finest Steel, or with maybe in conjunction with some of the Ronin models. Okay. The Minamoto Ashigaru are probably not in a fantastic place just now. They're not what I would consider cost effective. So I would either rely on more samurai, and then probably run it with Finest Steel, or maybe a kind of combination list, possibly similar to with maybe like Grey Pilgrim, maybe some Kami and things in with it.
Well, I'd say a fire Kami with this would be fun, because now I could put 2 conditions on a model.
Yeah.
A bit
nippy
sure.
for nippy. You want to go down that route? Yeah, it's totally legitimate. Decent damage output. A lot of models kind of a lot less to have access to finesse.
Yeah.
Well, she'll maybe stumble a bit against, but that's what it is. Maybe just throw a molten ball at them first and hope for the best.
The nice thing with her that I noticed, because I built lists just to have it handy, I put her in finest steel, and I just took a 5 list of badass samurai between
Yep.
her and Akatsuki. Like, they're both low point enough where it's like all of a sudden now I can actually get some variety into my Minimoto, where it's like
Instead
I
of the
can get
normal
5.
3,
Well,
Nico,
no, I
Ryo.
mean, I still had 3 of those too, but a lot of the stuff that I noticed with the Minimoto Samurai, they ran into a very similar issue like Yokozuna's Revenge for Silver Moon. You can only really fit 4 of them in there, and then you took a crap ton of support cards, and it's just like it basically was pointless.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
Silver Moon had to do it with the 1-point deduction. She's low enough points, and then with the other newer Minimoto Samurai that came out, all of a
Don't
sudden
talk to me about her.
I can make a banger for a 5 list samurai list in finest steel, and it would be scary.
I think you'd be better just dropping Akatsuki and taking like Smith and Kami probably. I'm
I
not a fan of
I thought
Akatsuki.
Yeah.
about that too. I did think about it, but I was also just kind of like, I mean, I not playing a whole lot of the Minimotos yet. I haven't dabbled too much with some of the blacksmiths. I did think about it though, but it was just like, if I just want to be like simple mind me and just be like, I want to destroy stuff. Like,
Let's
I'm gonna do it with 5 samurai and see how this goes.
let's be honest. Your build. He also likes building his lists for one of our friends, Doctor
For Dr.
Dice,
Dice.
who just likes beating the crap out of things.
And that's fair. That's so Minimoto are in a kind of a weird place. They don't have access. If you've got anti-brutal tech,
Mm-hmm.
they can sometimes kind of hit a bit of a brick wall because they
Mhm.
don't have access. There's no feint. There's next to no. There's only one option for unblockable, and some models that can't even go on.
Yeah.
So if you've got a model that has like 3 or 4 dice and a parry 1
Mm-hmm.
and has access to feint, they can't really do anything against that model. So you kind of have to think outside the box. So sometimes it's worth having some ranged options, even in finest steel. And the only ones you can get, I suppose, are the fire cami.
Fire Kami. You get the one Smith. That's not a great option.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the Minimoto are in an interesting place just now because they do well in some scenarios, but obviously the fact that they are limited. The thing that wins most war games is positioning and movement speed options. By their very nature, Minimoto don't have those things, which
No.
means in a lot of scenarios they are just already straight on a downside. So they then have to murder. But if they can't murder quickly or at all, or in the right places, they're just going to lose the game straight away. So yeah, sometimes you have to be a bit trickier than you have to be think about the list building options. You can take like the 5 samurai, but if you were to take it to a tournament, I don't think you do very well.
No,
Yeah,
probably.
I could see that. Again, it's been weird, and like you said, I like building for Dr. Dice, and the one time I did do it, it turned out very well.
Well, that had a lot of range in it,
I know
though.
that's what I was thinking was is that I took every disc thrower in the game and then said, all right, now I'm gonna throw some Minimoto Samurai on top of this and go.
Yeah, I mean that's legitimate enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think the idea would be really cool with just having the 5 of them, and just again, I could take 5 Minamoto Samurai, get the Justice Scratch, and the other couple cards that I want, just to make sure that they're good on that part, and not be like, all right, cool. So I still have 8 points left of points to spend for
Yeah.
cards in Minimoto. So what else do I want? I guess because
I mean, you probably never lose a model, but would you win the game? Maybe not.
I would frustrate the hell out of my opponent. Why can't I kill you? I had extra points for cards, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You hope for 3 zones, take 1 zone, and then just with everything, and just try to slowly move across the board to take the other 2 as quickly as as you best you can. All right, so that's some options for Koyama. So then, same question for Sadao. What would you build around him, and who would be, or who would be his BFF?
So Sadeo is obviously much more versatile. I think in that Rio has a much wider range of models to draw from.
That's true too. Yeah.
And there's a lot of those models. A lot of them are much more kind of overall competitive. So you could, like, as I said, concept wise, you could take him. I like him taking him with like a big group of Ashigaru, like, and you can set that up in a number of ways that are you can go really quite deep here because you can get a place off the video, you can forward deploy with your guns, you can get movement off of Hanso, you could just go for a massive swarm of guys and just wear them down with multiple activations. You could employ kind of some of the some of the Weeping Sky cards where they kill your guys and you start getting points from it. And then equally, if you wanted a cheap option that's going to give you a place in Blood of the Dragon, you could try using Sadeo, and get some death sentences out. Kimiko, she's got coordinate attack, so
you want to tell us
it would
not
work
to
for
talk
her.
about someone, Kimiko? God
I
damn that
hate
bitch.
that model.
So yes, the coordinated attack would work well with her, but it would work well with any of them because it's just trying to drop the offensiveness of some of the guys. But the fact that Ryo can run a huge breadth of different lists, mech lists, samurai lists, or Close the Dragon, there's a lot of options there. To say which one's the best, can't say for sure. It depends on the matchup. But you could have a number of great options. I think Sadio. I think he seems to be really pretty well received on the Protectorate forums.
I kind of like him, and again, kind of going theme wise, I'd like to play that Weeping Sky card that gives you points for when you lose people, and he just takes a bunch, and I'm gonna take down those Shiho, and I don't care what it's cost, so go, and he pushes people into them, and I'm gonna move this guy over in there, and yeah, you may take out 2 of them, but whatever, I could live with this. This is the cost of taking out the enemy, so that could be, from a thematic point of view, that's kind of a fun way to look at it, effectively too, because you could outnumber people and whatnot. It may be almost a way to get around some of the shenanigans that the people that the Shiho can do. So that's something I'm going to have to investigate a little more on that. All right, yeah. So that's
he can run a really strong scenario game. Like
yes.
Ashigaru can run a pretty strong Ashigaru kind of predominant list can run a good scenario game in a way, and he kind of helps you. He kind of like turns that up potentially a bit
Takes
more.
it up a notch. I could see him. I could see doing like a heavy crit strike list in one list and then doing this as your secondary list, so that way you have either one. But if you really need to do, really are going to go scenario because your opponent and whatnot, then this one would make he would be one of the anchor points or one of the strong points in making a list that can do that for sure. Just with the movement shenanigans and whatnot that he can do, and then what the Ashigaru can bring to the table also. So lots of versatility there.
Yeah, I think people will enjoy him. I think he'll take a lot more thinking in terms of like, oh, what am I going to do to make an you don't need to be optimal, but his list construction is obviously going to be much more diverse, and his play options are going to be a lot more diverse than like Koyama's. Even on a one-on-one basis, Koyama's obviously much better than he is. Just purely as a fighter, but I think he'll open up a lot of interesting options, just play options for people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll be a lot of fun. And then again, you could run him with a bunch of guns. You could just run him with the Ashigaru. He could even fit in with some samurai. I could see him teaming up. Well, I can't see anybody that Kumiko doesn't team up well with, but that would be something that would work good too.
The only thing I can't see Kumiko teaming up with is the Damp Dragon. That's just because the Damp Dragon is like 30 points and Dragon wants to do some other stuff that needs some help.
Dragon's going to do dragon stuff. All right. So I'm going to change screens here. We'll go back to this. So I think that gives us a good idea of the models and your ideas behind them and ways to use them and just a good rundown of them. So we appreciate that. That's it's been a good review for it. and I enjoy it. Like I said, of the two, my personal choice, just because I'm more straightforward and not that smart, I like the Minimoto model. um, and it also screws over ninjas, which makes me happy too. I shouldn't say it screws them over, but it gives me more defenses against them because, like you said, and I would definitely agree. Of the factions that you have to play against, Minimoto, well, they suddenly are just falling back on their armor, and they can't be on the front foot with them, not as much. This allows you to at least have a little bit of a front foot, and especially if you play it right. And if your opponent doesn't play it right, you're going to be able to get on them. And and then
Punch them a wee bit.
yeah. So now it looks really cool, and it's just one of those things where it's a finesse model, it's a support model. So it's one of those that I'd have to start learning and playing more Ryu with, which would mean I'd have to buy more models. Which for GCT, that's great, but they have a lot of my money already. And I have a problem with other games too. I have a problem. I need to start
an addict, aren't they?
group. Need to have an intervention.
You and Headley can have that group. You and Headley can have that intervention.
That's going to be our intervention group. Is we play too many games, and we love them all. But we thank you for coming on, Al. We appreciate it. We kept you up really, really late. So
he's like, well, it's all good.
It's all good. But
hopefully it'll be insightful and people get an idea as to why maybe they have the rules they have or what's the background to them. It's always interesting. I like hearing why do they have those rules, and then you kind of work out, all right, okay, that relates to this, and that's why. Yeah, okay, right, cool.
It sounds like your process was a little bit more in depth. I know for me, I gave a couple of my drafts off, and then it was a little bit of tuning here and there, but then it was much more just me kind of play testing it in the local group, and then kind of seeing oh, here's where it is, and okay, cool, we'll go with this.
I think probably too with doing the Grandmasters models, proximity to the actual people doing it probably helps just a little bit. We do have the time zone difference and everything else, so that makes communication a little more, not that it's impossible, but a little more funky. But yeah, that I think I do like being able to see, and I think everybody else kind of, how is the cake made? Putting it together, what the thought processes are. So definitely appreciate those insights, and you don't see being able to make two, let alone, most people only going to get a chance to get one. That's something else too. So that's pretty cool. So we appreciate you having you on. Before we log off, I always still have to plug, if you are in the United States, or even if you're not in the United States, and you are looking to pick up some Bushido figures, which, here in the States, there are not a lot of shops that carry them. Give a check out to fireforgedminis.com. Fireforged Minis carries a whole good selection of Bushido figures. And right now, or still going on, if you use the promo code at checkout GwtG10 or Gaming with the Guys 10, you will get 10% off your order. So check them out today. Mike would love to take your order and send you out some more Bushido figures. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be getting some of these new GM models and whatnot as soon as he gets the shipment from the guys over in the UK. So again, appreciate you both being on. It was great talking. It's always good talking with you, Al. So hopefully we'll have you on again in the future. Talking about Lord only knows what other subjects on Bushido or other things. It'd be good. And Jason. And Mordheim. Honestly, that's the one GW game I've never played was Mordheim. I was more of a Necromunda guy, but Mordheim is
the same idea.
It's the same idea, but it's cooler. It's got fantasy stuff. But yeah, definitely wouldn't mind hearing about that too, because I do. Like I said, and I've said this before and other things. I like GW's old games. I think
people do.
That was in the heyday before they were bought out by the corporate shills.
This guy, I don't know if you can see him very well.
Let me see if I could blow you up just with that.
That's me.
Gosh, wrong. That's me, wrong guy.
Sweet model. It's cool.
That is cool.
I don't actually have any of the games. This whole range doesn't actually have any of the Games Workshop models.
Is it?
But it's just the rule system. So
is it Carnival?
No, it's I don't know where it comes from. I just saw a cool 3D printed vampire, and I was like,
Oh.
yeah,
Oh, don't
Definitely
talk
have
to us
that.
about 3D printers. Here in the States, Bamboo Lab just came out with their 300A or something like that. They've had it on sales for like $250 US or something like that.
Around 200-300 US. And
So
okay.
yeah, our buddy's been talking about it. He's like, "Oh my god, I've never seen a 3D printer print so cleanly."
it's so good. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have that kind of money. So, or room to put anything.
Yeah, I was like, it's more the room. Otherwise, I know
Mm.
you'd make me get it, but I don't have the room here, and I don't think I can put it in the
You
garage.
have less room than me, yes.
I know.
And my garage is filthy. I wouldn't do anything in there. It's a mess. All right. Well,
Anyway, horrible sidetrack aside.
Sidetrack again. All right. Well, thank you both for being on. We hope to do this again. If you enjoyed what you heard today, give us that thumbs up. Let us know we're on the right track. And of course, you should have already subscribed when this thing started. So just go ahead and make sure, double check to subscribe again. We do appreciate those people who subscribe. And we hope to be putting some more battle reports out really soon. Maybe we'll even have a painted Kabuki box within the next 3 to 6 months from Jason. Unless Cody paints it before him.
Nah, I want to actually paint this. I'm feeling slightly more willing to paint now, especially since I got the skin tone on the model. So that was like the hardest part.
Yeah, painting. The hardest part for us. For others, it's easy. Not for us. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. It's great to have you all on and to be able to shout out. And for everybody, have a great day or evening, wherever you may be. So long, everybody.
Later.